If you put my name in the title and you label it Logan Paul scam, you're gonna get more views. The problem with it is that is not true.
You told me I couldn't say anything because Eddie was being investigated by the FBI and that was confidential information. It's all over the internet. I've been let on for a year, bro. I've also asked you to audit the contract for the game and see where the money went so many times, and that never happened either. Do you see how this looks?
I see how it looks.
What did you do?
Tried to help to get the project done. That's all I did.
Logan Paul, once the face of influencer success, is now caught in a whirlwind of FBI scrutiny, crypto controversy, and mounting lawsuits. What began as a hyped blockchain game has spiraled into a scandal involving lost millions.
I lost $40,000.
I lost around 15,000 US dollars.
I lost $25,000.
Investor betrayal, and internal documents Logan is fighting hard to keep sealed. And while the SEC may have quietly backed off, the FBI's silence speaks volumes. They're moving quietly, methodically, and without warning. What's really hidden beneath Logan's confident statements and carefully crafted image? What damning details are buried in those court filings? From NFT hype to investor nightmare. It all started with a raid. Federal agents executed a search warrant linked to alleged criminal activity at an Arizona shopping mall. They seized multiple firearms from a home reportedly tied to one of Logan Paul's close associates. No arrests were made that day. But Logan's name, through whispers, speculation, and headlines, was already circling beneath the surface. It was a quiet spark that would later ignite a wildfire. At the heart of the controversy was CryptoZoo, a blockchain-based NFT game Logan had been promoting for months.
I believe is gonna change the game because as of now, there's a model that a lot of people in the crypto space have identified, and that's releasing a set number of unique assets.
He wasn't just endorsing it. He was one of its key creators and investors. It was pitched as a revolutionary fusion of entertainment, cryptocurrency, and profit. The concept? Simple. Buy an NFT egg, hatch it into a unique animal, breed those animals, and earn money passively through gameplay. Fans were promised a chance to collect, create, and cash in. No technical knowledge needed. The appeal was magnetic. Logan's fame ensured the spotlight. He had a massive fan base and a proven track record for turning attention into revenue. That influence was now being used to sell a digital ecosystem. He wasn't doing it alone. Logan had assembled a core team: Jake Greenbaum, Eddie Ibanez, Danielle Strobel, and Ofer Bentov, names not known to the public, but individuals with key roles behind the scenes. Combined, they poured over $1 million into developing the platform. They made it look official, organized, and futuristic. Crypto investors and die-hard fans alike rushed in. CryptoZoo's online channels, its Discord server, website, and social pages buzzed with anticipation. Teaser trailers promised groundbreaking tech and high-earning potential. NFT drops sold out quickly. People from around the world scrambled to buy their eggs before prices went up. But when the game launched, things fell apart immediately.
The hatch day comes when you're supposed to hatch these eggs, and half the hatching doesn't work.
Players who had spent real money discovered that nothing actually worked. Eggs couldn't hatch. The system for breeding didn't exist. There was no interface for collecting earnings, no marketplace, no progress tracker. The entire back end of the game felt abandoned. It didn't just have bugs, it was unfinished. Some began to question if it was even real at all. And then came the artwork scandal. Logan had promoted CryptoZoo's NFTs as uniquely illustrated creatures, generated by a custom-built engine. But online sleuths quickly discovered the truth. Many of the animal designs were clearly traced or modified versions of generic Adobe stock images. Some hadn't even been changed at all, just repurposed with minor tweaks. The entire art library had been misrepresented, and it shattered any illusion of authenticity. Investors who thought they were supporting the next evolution of NFT gaming suddenly realized they were holding overpriced copies of public assets. But by then, the money was gone. Early reports showed wallet addresses linked to the project pulling out large amounts of Ethereum. The project's smart contracts lacked transparency. Users couldn't trace where their investments were going, or if they were ever coming back. Some people had sunk thousands of dollars into the project expecting long-term gains. Others had only bought 1 or 2 eggs out of curiosity. Regardless, they were all left in the same place, holding nothing.
I lost $40,000.
I lost around 15,000 US dollars.
I lost $25,000.
And the worst part? Most of them weren't crypto veterans. They weren't hedge fund speculators or blockchain devs. They were average people. Logan's subscribers, his fans, many of them teenagers, who bought in because they trusted him. The silence from the team was deafening. Discord admins stopped responding. Project developers disappeared. Updates ceased. Promises made just weeks earlier were ignored completely. Instead of answers, the blame game began. Logan Paul distanced himself. He suggested his role had been misrepresented. He shifted responsibility to Eddie Ibanez, citing internal conflict and betrayal. He claimed a developer had stolen the source code and fled to Switzerland. But to the community, these excuses sounded eerily familiar, like the deflections made in every failed crypto rug pull. No one was buying it. The fans who believed they were part of something revolutionary had instead walked straight into a financial trap. And the man who invited them in, the one who had promised them earnings, excitement, and innovation, had gone silent too. CryptoZoo wasn't just a technical failure. It was a collapse of trust, reputation, and accountability. A game that never worked. A system that never paid. A project that left its investors in the dark, both literally and financially. And for Logan Paul, this disaster was no longer just an online controversy. It was the beginning of a much larger investigation. Whistleblowers, lawsuits, and the evidence Logan tried to bury. As the CryptoZoo debacle unraveled, one voice emerged from the noise, and it wasn't a former team member, an angry investor, or a disgruntled fan. It was CoffeeZilla, the YouTube investigator known for tearing the masks off shady crypto projects. When he turned his spotlight onto Logan Paul, things quickly escalated beyond internet drama. This wasn't just a content feud. It became a journalistic investigation with real-world consequences. CoffeeZilla spent months tracking the story. He interviewed key developers, former employees, and anonymous sources with first-hand knowledge of CryptoZoo's inner workings. What he found painted a picture far worse than just a failed game. It showed signs of intentional deception, internal dysfunction, and a clear pattern of ignoring red flags, while the money kept pouring in. One of the most explosive interviews came from Zach Kelling, a former developer. Kelling claimed he and a team of 30 engineers worked for months on the back end of CryptoZoo and never got paid. He described missed paychecks, ignored invoices, and an environment where developers were expected to deliver a finished product with almost no resources. According to Kelling, Logan and his partners didn't bring code, structure, or support to the table, just empty marketing and recycled images. But the investigation didn't stop at interviews. CoffeeZilla was collecting hard proof, text messages, leaked emails, financial records, and screenshots from private team chats. These weren't just rumors, they were receipts. As he connected the dots, CoffeeZilla realized that this wasn't just a case of mismanagement. It might qualify as fraud. That's when he escalated it. In October 2022, CoffeeZilla submitted a formal report to the FBI, providing internal evidence and statements that outlined potential financial misconduct. Just a few days later, on October 23rd, he filed a whistleblower complaint with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, alleging that Logan Paul and his collaborators may have violated securities laws and caused substantial financial harm to the public. The timeline moved quickly after that. By February 2023, the SEC had contacted CoffeeZilla directly for a voluntary meeting. In March, they summoned Logan Paul for questioning regarding both CryptoZoo and another controversial token he had promoted, Dinkdoink, which had already come under scrutiny after plummeting in value post-promotion. The pieces were starting to fall into place. But instead of responding transparently, Logan retaliated. On June 27, 2024, Logan Paul filed a defamation lawsuit against CoffeeZilla, accusing him of malicious intent, false reporting, and reputational damage. He sought $75,000 in damages and aimed to shut down the narrative that had taken over the headlines. CoffeeZilla responded immediately, filing a motion to transfer the case from San Antonio to Austin, Texas, a jurisdiction where media law is notoriously stronger. But he didn't stop there. He attached over 100 pages of evidence to the court filing, including internal group chats, contracts, financial conversations, and screenshots that offered a behind-the-scenes look at the project's failure. The contents of those documents were explosive. They allegedly showed Logan discussing how to retaliate against CoffeeZilla, not by proving him wrong, but by financially crippling him. The tone was personal, vindictive. Logan reportedly spoke about draining CoffeeZilla's resources, pushing legal pressure, and burying him in court expenses. Some messages appeared to suggest that Logan knew more about CryptoZoo's internal issues than he had ever admitted publicly. Fearing damage to his public image, Logan filed a motion to seal the documents, arguing they contained irrelevant and sensitive material that would be used to humiliate him. But the damage was already done. The existence of those files was now public. The internet was buzzing, and journalists were digging deeper. Behind the courtroom chaos was an even more critical revelation. Logan may have known CryptoZoo was broken all along. The internal messages pointed to ongoing dysfunction, missed payments, shady wallet transactions, and team members expressing concern, long before investors started complaining. Yet Logan kept promoting the project, kept promising it would work, and kept pulling in new buyers. By now, public perception was shifting fast. Logan's fan base, once loyal and forgiving, was splintering. Many began to distance themselves. Others demanded refunds, apologies, or legal action. The credibility that Logan had spent years rebuilding was beginning to crack again. But even more chilling was the silence from the federal agencies. The SEC was involved. The FBI had received evidence, and neither agency was releasing public updates. No press briefings, no timelines, just silence. But people who follow federal investigations know that kind of silence often means something is happening. Behind the scenes, quietly, strategically. And when the noise finally comes, it's usually because indictments are ready. Meanwhile, CoffeeZilla wasn't backing down. He stood by his reporting, his videos, and his evidence. He made it clear that this wasn't about views. It was about accountability, about exposing a multi-million-dollar project that failed thousands of people and never delivered on a single one of its promises. And as Logan tried to regain control of the narrative, the story had already slipped out of his hands. The courtroom drama was only the surface. Behind the scenes, a deeper silence was growing, one that didn't come from lawyers or YouTubers, but from the FBI. Regulatory fallout and what's next. Logan Paul told his followers the investigation was over. In early 2024, he publicly claimed the SEC had concluded its review of CryptoZoo and found no wrongdoing. The announcement was framed as a clean break, a way to move on, clear his name, and return to business as usual. But the reality behind that statement told a different story. The SEC didn't exonerate him. There was no declaration of innocence, no published report, and no closure for the thousands of investors who lost their money. What actually happened was tied to a policy shift, part of a broader rollback of crypto enforcement under the Trump administration. Several investigations were quietly dropped or paused, and Logan's case happened to be one of them. It wasn't justice, it was politics. And to those still seeking answers, it felt like a technicality, not a vindication. That left one agency still looming in the background, the FBI. And they haven't said a word. For months, the Bureau has remained completely silent. No press releases, no statements, no comments to the media. But that kind of silence isn't meaningless. In federal investigations, especially when money and deception are involved, silence often means something is happening behind closed doors. Evidence is being reviewed, interviews are being conducted, cases are being built, and when the time is right, they act. Logan, meanwhile, has tried to move forward. From the outside, his life seems unaffected. He's still headlining WWE events, pushing his Prime Energy drinks, and teasing new YouTube ventures like nothing happened. He's back to creating content, back to building his brand, back to being Logan Paul. But the cracks are still showing. In court, the class action lawsuit against him and several former CryptoZoo collaborators remains active. Investors continue to allege fraud, unjust enrichment, and misrepresentation. Logan has attempted to shift legal responsibility to others, claiming he was misled by his team. But internal documents suggest he was far more involved than he admits. In a recent update, Danielle Strobel, Logan's former assistant and a named collaborator in CryptoZoo, was partially dismissed from the case, but not because she was found innocent. Instead, the court ruled that jurisdictional limitations prevented her from being sued in that state. The dismissal was procedural, not exculpatory. She could still face legal action elsewhere. The same can't be said for Logan. He remains the project's most visible figure, and the one investors trusted the most. The face on every promo, the name that brought legitimacy. And when it all fell apart, the same fans who bought in based on that name were left with nothing. Facing mounting pressure, Logan announced a refund initiative in January 2024. On paper, it sounded promising. A $1.5 million buyback program aimed at reimbursing affected NFT holders. But the rollout was vague. The criteria were unclear, and according to multiple users in the CryptoZoo Discord and Twitter threads, most still haven't seen a dollar. For many, the gesture felt hollow, an attempt to calm the backlash, not truly make people whole. And even if every refund went through, that still wouldn't fix the deeper damage. Because this was never just about money, it was about trust. Fans didn't just invest in a game, they invested in Logan Paul. They believed the hype because they believed in him. And that belief is harder to restore than any lost Ethereum. This scandal is more than a failed crypto project. It's a case study in influence without accountability, a reminder of how quickly hype can be weaponized and how easily trust can be sold, especially when it comes from someone with millions of followers and global reach. Logan Paul was once the comeback story of the internet. From scandal to redemption, he had rebranded himself as a businessman, a creator, a fighter. But with CryptoZoo, that mask slipped. The questions that remain aren't just about legal liability, they're about integrity, about whether someone with that level of reach should ever again be trusted with that level of influence. And yet, the most important question is still unanswered. What happens if the FBI is still watching? Because if they are, and if they're building a case, it won't come with a warning. Just like in high-profile investigations we've seen before, it happens quietly, until it doesn't. When the time comes, they don't ask for a statement. They show up with evidence. Logan Paul's story isn't over, but it's no longer his to control. What began as a promising crypto venture turned into a high-stakes legal battle, littered with broken promises, vanished money, and fans left in the dark. He may still claim innocence. He may still have defenders. But the documents, the investigations, and the silence from federal authorities suggest there's far more we haven't seen. This scandal has shattered more than just a digital project. It's cracked the image of someone millions once trusted. Whether Logan ever faces legal consequences remains uncertain. But in the court of public opinion, the verdict is already taking shape. Trust, once lost, is rarely earned back. And if the FBI really is circling, we may be just one headline away from watching it all collapse. What do you think? Has Logan Paul crossed a line he can't come back from? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to stay updated as this story develops, make sure to hit like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.